In the last 10 years, we've been managing hundreds and hundreds of properties, and you would think that we've evicted a lot of people, but the reality is we've only evicted one. You might think, how is that even possible? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Whether you're a beginning landlord or a seasoned investor, we're going to show you how we've only evicted one. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, we've assisted other landlords with problems that they bring to us, and we've assisted them with evictions and getting a better tenant after we've taken care of the problem. But somebody who's gone through our screening process, we've only had to evict one. The way we've gotten this excellent eviction record is through proper vetting. Let's face it, many people lie on their rental applications, create fake pay stubs, have their friends or family give them fake landlord references. There's plenty of people whose mission in order to get into your rental property is to fool you into thinking that they're going to be a great tenant when in reality they're not. We've seen terrible cases where tenants have destroyed properties and not paid rent for long periods of time. More on that to come later. We're going to share a story with you. The fact is that in California, which is a state that is extremely tenant friendly, once that lease is signed and they move into your property, they have a lot of rights. And getting them out after they turn into bad tenants can be a long, stressful, arduous process. So what can you do as a landlord to avoid being deceived and having one of these tenants move into your properties, destroy it, and stop paying the rent? After more than a decade in the landlording business, we've found that it's best not to rely on anything that can be altered. Instead, use objective data that you can find where you can verify their income, verify their bank account balances, use public information to verify what they are telling you on the rental application. That's a much better way than relying on something that somebody can fake. There are multiple software companies out there that provide services to help you properly vet your tenants. The company we currently use is called Findigs, and it has next level fraud detection capabilities. They look at bank account balances through the back end. They do have this 3D technology that they verify identifications and make sure those aren't fraudulent. There are companies out there like this that make it easy for you to do your homework. Now, this video is not sponsored by Findigs, and we're not saying that that's the only one that's out there. This just happens to be the one that we use, and we're interested in sharing that. So if you wanted to look into them and make your job easier, if you're screening tenants on your own, that'd be a good idea. Doing all the things that we've discussed so far doesn't guarantee you that you're not going to have an eviction. What it does is decrease the probability that the eviction is going to happen to you. But people's lives change, circumstances change, job transfers, divorces, things like that. So if you are facing an eviction, where do you go from there? Let's talk about that. When dealing with an eviction, we always recommend that you use a professional. There are attorneys who specialize in doing evictions, and that is who we recommend you use. In addition to that, you want to make sure you're working with a professional property management company, because a lot of times the professional management company will keep you out of the eviction. Not always, but it will reduce your chances. When a professional handles this for you, it minimizes the opportunity for mistakes. And when it comes to evictions and dealing with the courts, it's those mistakes that usually reset timers that lead to those horror stories that I'm sure you've heard, where tenant lived in my house for a year, didn't pay rent, and we couldn't evict him. Usually those are people who are trying to do the evictions themselves. And our legal system is set up to where you absolutely have to know exactly how the game is played, how the paperwork's filled out, what the procedures are in front of the judge. And it's when people try to do that on their own that they constantly get delayed, which just translates into less money you're collecting, more damage the tenant is doing to the property, which is why it's so important that if you have an eviction, do not try to do it yourself. We had a situation where a landlord reached out to us that they had one heck of a time trying to deal with an eviction that they were trying to do themselves, where the tenant had literally done $100,000 and so of damage, and they couldn't make it happen. They couldn't push it over the finish line. They destroyed the house. My rough estimate to bring the house back up to a condition that you could rent again, probably in the neighborhood of $100,000 worth of work. really, really bad. And literally, if they would have just contacted an eviction attorney in the very beginning, spent a couple $1,000s, which is typically what they charge in our area, they would have avoided all the headache of months and months and months of no rent and hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage to the property. These expenses like lost income and property damage can add up quickly, which is why it's in your best interest to deal with evictions swiftly and with a professional. We're a professional property management company and we don't do our own evictions. We contract it out with an eviction attorney. That's how important it is that you use a professional. So even though we, do property management day in and day out, we still use a professional. The other piece of advice that I have for you is once a tenant shows that they are not going to be paying the rent regularly or any other violations of the lease, it's best for you to act swiftly. Move forward with the eviction because the likelihood that the tenant's behavior changes is very low. And we know that from experience. We've been burned in the past by listening to tenants make promises that they ultimately don't keep. It's not that if you follow through with the eviction, you can always stop it in the future if something changes, but you can never go the other way around. So if you listen to excuses and you let excuse after excuse after excuse pile up, and now you're 2, 3, 4 months into it, it's really hard to make up for all that lost rent. So if you have a situation where you have to evict a tenant for not following the lease, it's best to do it right away so you can move on and then put a new tenant in the property who is going to follow the rules, pay the rent, and allow you to enjoy the benefits of being a landlord. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. If you find any value in it, please like and subscribe so that we can share this with other people. If you are in our market and you are interested in investing in our area or having a deeper conversation about these issues, please reach out to us. Our contact info is below, and thanks for watching.